Welcome to Lingua Latīna tutorials with Mr. K, Pensum D. This video explains the new grammar and syntax found in Chapter 12 of the Lingua Latīna per se Illustrāta series by Hans Orberg. It's meant to accompany the Latini Disco text available from Focus Bookstore and the Pensum D worksheet available from 50%latin.blogspot.com or christianlanguage.com. Let's get right into the text. The first feature that I want to point out is in line 6 of this chapter, where we have Marco una soror est. Marco here, in the dative case, is a new construction. It is called the dative of possession. And literally this sentence says, there is one sister to Marcus, or for Marcus. We would obviously translate that as Marcus has one sister, as you see in the margin, but you should understand this structure is a common structure where you have a dative showing ownership rather than a genitive. You see the same thing here in the next sentence, Iuliae duo fratre sunt. There are two brothers to Julia, or in other words, Julia has two brothers. Notice also in line 9, where we have matri Aemilia nomen est, and quod nomen est patri, et nomen est Lucius Iulius Balbus. So we have the name to the mother is Aemilia. What is the name to the father? The name to him, ei, is Lucius Julius Balbus. So here we have three datives of possession in a row. These happening to be the first two in third declension, and then ei from is. So a common construction, and you should know the name dative of possession. The next feature I want to point out is in the same line 10 here, where we have the full name of Julius. We've only known him as Julius so far, but now we see that his full name is Lucius Julius Balbus. And this is common for a Roman citizen, male citizen, to have three names: a praenomen, which was quite common from a list of about 15 common praenomina, and Lucius is one of those. So his praenomen is Lucius, and his nomen, the name, family name that by which we know him in the story, is Julius, and his daughter Julia gets her name from this nomen. It's the feminine form of the nomen. That's the name the daughter of the family typically would receive. And then Balbus is a cognomen. Often it is a descriptive name from an ancestor, like the bald Caesar, or Balbus here, which means stammering or stuttering. So the next feature that I want to point out in the text is in line 34. And here we go. We have scutum et gladius et pilum sunt arma militis Romani. And sorry, it's in the sentence before. Miles est virqui scutum et gladium et pilum fert. Fert it means the same as portat, carries. So a soldier is a man who carries a shield and a sword and a javelin. And fert in the plural is ferunt. I want to point this out because notice that there's no vowel between the R and the T. It's fert. He carries. And also in the passive, when you say something is carried, there's also no vowel between the R and the T, so it's fertur rather than feritur. And the imperative mood of fert is fer. So if you command someone to carry, it's just fer, carry, or in the plural, ferte. Okay, the next new grammar feature is in line 49, where we have the sentence Julius says, duos pedes longus est, talking about the gladius. The gladius is 2 feet long. And notice that we have duos pedes, the accusative plural for 2 feet. This was the way the Romans would describe extent, or the length of something, the height of something, or the extent of something in time, like for 2 years or so. So we have the accusative of extent or duration. It's 2 feet long. The next feature is in line 52, and you see Julius saying, quod gladius brevis non tam gravis est quam gladius longus. So he's answering the question why the Romans have a short sword, and he says because a short sword is not as heavy as a long sword. And we see both 2 different adjectives in that phrase. We have longus, which you've seen adjectives like this before, like magnus aum. These are first and second declension adjectives that decline just like the normal endings you've seen for insula, fluvius, and oppidum, and they match the nouns they go with. So gladius longus, so you'd have, if you had a long island, it'd be insula longa. But now we're introduced to a new set of adjectives which belong to the third declension. So they are going to be masculine, feminine, neuter, and decline something like you saw pastor and ovis declining, or like ovis actually, because they are I stems. And then also they're going to have features in common with mare. So the difference in the third declension adjectives like brevis and gravis, the main differences you'll see between these, like brevis and gravis, and say ovis, is that you'll end up with a long I in the ablative. So the declension here, you would have brevis, and then brevem, and then brevi for the, we'd have brevis, brevem, and then brevis for the genitive, and brevi for the dative, and brevi again for the ablative singular. And then for the plural, it's going to be the same as ovis. So it's going to be the endings ace, eum, ibus, ibus. So for gravis, and gravis will be the same. The neuter is going to decline exactly like mare. So add the same endings you would for mare for breve, or brevis, the neuter. Okay, the next feature I want to point out is in line 64. Scroll down. Okay, it's right here. We have provincia est pars imperii Romani, ut membrum pars corporis est. A province is a part of the Roman Empire, like a member, like a limb is a part of the body. So the case here, imperii Romani, of the Roman Empire, this is genitive case. It's a special kind of genitive. It's called the genitive of the whole, or the partitive genitive, and it gets its name partitive from this word pars here. Because when you have a part of something, or one portion of a thing, the of the thing, because it's not possessive, that gets the name partitive genitive. The next feature, the next new grammar and syntax feature is in line 80. Actually, I have a couple of things to point out in line 80. So we have Julius, who says, exercitus est magnus numerus militum qui contra hostes ducetur. So an army is a large number of soldiers who, or which, is led against enemies. So here, the first new feature is the word exercitus, which belongs to a new family of nouns called the fourth declension. And in the margin, you see the endings of the fourth declension. It's declined here: exercitus, exercitum, exercitus, exercitui, exercitu. And these are mostly masculine nouns. One of the common exceptions to that gender rule is manus, hand. Hand is a very common word, and it happens to be feminine. But most other fourth declension nouns are going to be masculine. So the next feature uses the word exercitui here, dux exercitui imperat, exercitus duci suo paret, nam dux ab exercitu metuitur. So here we have the leader gives orders to the army, or commands his army. The army obeys its leader, for the leader is feared by the army. Here, exercitui, if you just look at the chart to the left, you see that exercitui is dative. And so, why is it dative? It's the object of imperat, so shouldn't it be accusative? Don't you expect dux, the leader, orders his army, exercitum? Well, this is the dative, and it is the dative because certain verbs take the dative, and you see that up here in the margin where it says parera and imperara plus dative. You need to learn those as you encounter them, because it's not always intuitive that they're going to take a dative case, and so I often try to translate them with a to afterwards. So gives orders to, dux, the leader gives orders to his army. Then it's easier to understand that you're going to have a dative case rather than commands, because if you use commands you expect an accusative, although if you do memorize that this takes the dative, you can use the word commands with it. And then the next clause here, exercitus duci suo paret, the army obeys its leader, duci suo, going together. Again, dative case here from dux, ducis, duci. Duci tells you that it's giving the army is giving its allegiance to its leader, and so paret is another one of those verbs that takes the dative rather than an accusative object. Okay, the next feature I want to point out is in line 93, and it is here where Julius says, Aemilius in castris habitat, mille passus affine imperii, and in castra sunt militum oppidum. I want to point out this word castris and then castra here in the margin, castra, castrorum. Notice that it says en neuter plural, because it is a plurale tantum. It's only plural. We have a few words like that in English, like the word barracks. We don't have a barrack. And like entrails. We have entrails in our body, but we don't have entrail in our body. So there are certain words in English that are only used in the plural, the same thing in Latin. Castra is one of them, but you translate it as singular. So here, Aemilius lives not in camps, plural, he lives in a camp. 1 mile, literally 1,000 paces, a mile from the border of the empire. And then here we have castra sunt, literally the camps are, but we are going to translate this as the camp is. The camp is a town of soldiers. Okay, next new grammar feature is in line 96. And we see Julius saying, unus passus est quinque pedes, ergo mille passus sunt quinque milia pedum. So here we have the word for a mile in Latin. The word mile in English comes from this word. And it comes from mille, which is 1,000, passus, which is a pace. A pace is one long step. Normal paces, if you've ever marched paces around your yard, are about 3 feet. But if you take a really long, it's about as long a stride as you can, you'll get about 5 feet out of it. So the Roman pace was 5 feet, and so mille passus was 1,000 paces, or 5,000 feet, which is just about our mile, a little bit short of what we consider a mile. And so 1 mile in Latin is mille passus, 1,000 paces, literally, and passus is fourth declension. So that's why you get this long U form here. And then milia pedum, quinque milia pedum, means literally 5,000s of paces. We have a genitive of the whole here, a partitive genitive, which you just learned earlier, thousands of paces. When you use milia, the plural of 1,000, you get a partitive genitive after it. So 5,000 paces, or 5,000 feet here, not paces, 5,000 feet, is quinque milia pedum, 5,000s of feet. So how would you say 2 miles? So if 1 mile is mille passus, how would you say 2 miles? You would say duo milia passuum. You need the genitive plural of passus, passuum. Okay, now the last feature I need to point out is in line 108, and that is where we have iacere in the margin. So, valum ascendunt ac pila in Germanos iaciunt. So they climb the wall and they throw their javelins against the Germans. Iaciunt, you see the I-U-N-T here, it's a new kind of third conjugation verb. And it's called an I-stem verb because it has a couple of forms that differ from the regular third declension. So to compare this with a verb like, say, ducere, to say they lead, here you would get ducunt, they lead. And so instead of iacunt, though, like what you'd expect for a third declension, third conjugation verb, you get iaciunt, you see an I-U-N-T. So the places that you'll see these I-stem verbs changing are in the first person singular. So instead of iaco for iacere, you get iacio. And then for the third plural, instead of iacunt, you get iaciunt. So it's good to keep in mind that comparison so that you can form these correctly. They won't throw you off very often in translation because the endings are correct. It's just this I that when you're creating the forms for a verb like iacere, you may forget that it's there. Okay, so those are the notes. Those are the new grammar features for Chapter 12. I hope you took good notes, and good luck on your pensum and exercises.